welcome to another episode of the Veterans View Show. And today we have guests here from the Finley Law Firm in Columbus, Georgia. And they cover the whole Chattahoochee Valley, to be honest with you. And today we're going to be talking about something that's very important to military retirees, veterans, and their families, and any civilians who have worked at Camp Lejeune. We have Mr. Ben Finley here and Mr. Nick Jackson. And we're going to talk about the Camp Lejeune issue, which is from August 1st, 1953 to December the 31st, 1987. And as I said, it's about the military, whether you was military in the Marine Corps, Army, Air Force, Navy, and you was training or stationed at Camp Lejeune, you'll be interested in this show. But first of all, before we do this, we're going to introduce our guests and let them say a few words about themselves before we start talking about the Camp Lejeune issue. Mr. Finley, tell us something about yourself, where you from, how you come up, where you go to law school at.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having us and having Nick and me on the show, and yes. and we appreciate all your good work in terms of spreading to the community and folks that need our services and also the help that you do. But a little color on me, I grew up in Columbus.
Yes, sir.
My mother's from Phoenix City. She went to Central High School, class of 1946. My aunt was class of 48. My other aunt was class of 62, and my uncle was class of 66.
Okay, we got Central in the house.
We got some deep roots to Phoenix City.
Yes, sir.
I graduated from the University of Georgia Law School in 1991. I've been practicing law for 31 years. Started out in Atlanta at a large, one of the largest, if not the largest, litigation firm in the Southeast, and then have been practicing in this community my entire time. But our offices are right at the corner of 13th Street and 2nd Avenue, right across the bridge, and we do a considerable amount of work, obviously, in Columbus and Fort Benning. And Nick and I have worked for years on things with the community, particularly in the military space. We've helped soldiers with regard to the 3M litigation. We've helped military folks with regard to lending practices and things that they've had to deal with, which are unique for military. And Camp Lejeune is kind of a consistent project that we're on with that to help the military. And that's what we're here to do in terms of being informative to your viewership and to spread the word.
Okay, great. And we're going to ask Nick to introduce himself. And I'm so proud of Nick because Nick is homegrown and he's a graduate of Central High School as well. So Nick, tell us something about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Leroy, for having us here today. Like Leroy said, I'm homegrown, Phoenix City schools from kindergarten until I graduated from Central High School. I went on to Auburn after that, and then Cumberland School of Law in Birmingham. Came back home after I graduated law school and really started hitting the streets and trying to develop relationships with people like Leroy. And that's how Leroy and I met, through our involvement in the Phoenix City Mayor's Ball Scholarship Foundation. Leroy serves on the board of Wiregrass RC&D, which is one of our biggest supporters. And he told me about his involvement in the Veterans Drug Court and everything that he's done there. And so when we started to really look into Camp Lejeune as a project for this area, I knew Leroy would be the guy to go to because he really does have the veterans' best interest in mind. And he's, does so much work advocating on their behalf. So thank you for having us.
Well, thank you for being here. And before we get started, we're going to take a quick station break, and then we'll be right back.
Beam is delivering gig speed internet to 100% of our network. But should you get a gig? Well, if you want to download an album in a blink, video conference in 4K, make virtual reality more real, power all of your home smart devices at the same time, and still have bandwidth to stream everything without buffering, then yeah, you gotta get a gig. So call, click, or visit and get it. Because when you gotta get a gig, you gotta go with Beam. Bringing East Alabama more.
And we're back here with Mr. Finley and Mr. Jackson. So we want to start off the discussion with Mr. Finley. Tell us something about the litigation of this project here with Camp Lejeune in mind, and all of the, whether they was military, civilian, spouses, children who lived there from worked there from 1953 to 1987.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. What we have here is something unique. The federal government recognized, and Congress, and it was highly publicized, passed what was known as the PACT Act. Mm-hmm. And Camp Lejeune Act is a portion of the PACT Act. And it was, senators were arguing about it in terms of whether or not to pass it, and there are issues with the budget. But at the end of the day, all that matters is that President Biden, on August 10th of 2022, signed the Camp Lejeune Act, which provides that any military personnel at Camp Lejeune for a 30-day period within a 34-year time period from August 1st, 1953 to December 31st, 1987, could have a compensable claim if there were certain issues regarding cancers, premature births, miscarriages, and a myriad of other issues that resulted in people sustaining personal injuries. It all was rooted in the fact, Leroy, that there were two main water systems at Camp Lejeune which were contaminated by VCs, BCEs, TCEs, and benzene. All of those are carcinogens. They're cancer-causing agents, right? So all of these people who worked at Camp Lejeune or lived at Camp Lejeune or worked on the base, whether they were military or not, were exposed to the water. They're exposed to the water with regard to taking a bath. They were exposed to it in terms of cooking. They were exposed to it in terms of bathing. And as a result, the government realized that we have an incredibly high number of folks, and it's estimated there are over 1 million people affected by this, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
we've got 330 million people in the United States, over 1 million people affected. So we don't want folks to just come away, and one of the things that we really want to educate the public when this space is, you didn't just have to be a soldier. You could be a child, right?
Right.
I'm 56 years old, okay? And so there are people who are from the 87 era, all right, and then back, they're going to be sort of my age and older who may have been stationed there. But it may be someone like Nick's age who's a child at the time, but he or people his age, as an example, might have had an issue. So they may have a claim. And monies are set aside. There's multiples of billions of dollars that are set aside for these claims to be paid. And there's a list of them which we'll identify and we can go over, in terms of detail. But it's also critically important to understand that there is a time limit. And the time limit is 2 years from the date the act was signed by President Biden. So the clock is running.
The clock is running.
Yes, sir. And that's why it's so important for us to talk about this today.
So this is sort of like Agent Orange then.
Exactly.
Because it could actually affect new births as well.
Absolutely.
Because I have some guys that I've been working with that have periodontal issues because of the water from Camp Lejeune. So I hope they're watching this show. And Nick, why don't you add something to this by talking about the civilian side of it, if you will.
Yeah, so, there's a lot of different aspects and ways that Camp Lejeune affected people, and especially people in the Chattahoochee Valley, and that's something you may not think about. Camp Lejeune is in Jacksonville, North Carolina, on the North Carolina coast, a pretty decent ways away from Fort Benning, Georgia. But the military is very transient in nature. So someone at Fort Benning, an infantry soldier there, may be, stationed at Camp Lejeune for a small amount of time, at least 30 days, for training. And if they were stationed there, then they could possibly be entitled to compensation because of that. But it's not just them; it's their family, it's their children, and it's other individuals that worked there and that were related to Camp Lejeune as a whole. Camp Lejeune, the water was so toxic at every single aspect of that base that even the hospital where people went to get well, that water was contaminated as well. So you go to the hospital and you're expecting to, get better with some type of ailment, and the very water that they're helping treat you with is contaminated. And that's how serious of an issue this is. I think, in 2022, politics, we won't go into that, but it's more polarized than it's probably ever been in any of our lifetimes. And this is something that both sides of the aisle, Republican, Democrat, everyone came together to agree that this was so important that this bill had to be passed to protect our veterans and their families.
And I think, too, that because Camp Lejeune get their water from the civilian side,
absolutely,
that it possibly, if you just lived around the base,
yeah,
you could be affected. So you might want to just call the Finley firm to find out whether you qualify. And as Mr. Finley said, it's 2 years from the date that President Biden signed this that you have to file this claim. Now, and don't get it wrong, this is for veterans, and I don't want you to get this wrong. You don't have to go down to the VSO office, the Veteran Service Office, to file this claim. Civilians, you're going to file your claim. You need to see the Finley firm. But military, you don't just have to go there. You can come to the Finley firm
Absolutely.
to file your claim.
That's a great point that you just raised, Leroy, because this does not compromise any veterans' benefits. This is separate and apart from. It has no impact on that whatsoever. And the government has encouraged folks like us to spread the word in this way, just like you did, Leroy, about that, and to understand there's a special claims process which we know how to file the claim. It's different than a VA claim. This is all pending in the Eastern District of North Carolina,
right.
And you've got to understand this process so we can help, obviously, in that way, right, to perfect the claim. But it includes every imaginable cancer you could have. I mean, bladder cancer, esophageal cancer, ovarian cancer, testicular cancer, I mean, leukemia, miscarriages, renal toxicity. We have a whole list of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, birth defects with a child that may have, autism. You could have a child that has autism, and that could be potentially a compensable claim based on what the federal government has identified. And they're really trying to make amends because, frankly, this should have never happened, and it shouldn't be in a situation where any politicians arguing about whether the folks that went, like the folks that your viewership, who went and fought in Afghanistan or Korea or Vietnam and tried to protect us when they come back. It's amazing to me how we don't protect those folks, men and women, in a way and provide them with the health care that they need. And we've created this toxicity and these issues that have caused additional damages, right, to them and their family members. So, and I'll just give you a little color on this too. My father was a Marine. My uncle was an airborne ranger and was in Vietnam, got shot in the leg, had a Purple Heart from that. So I think of them, and they're both deceased now, but my uncle had Agent Orange, and you mentioned that, and it contributed to his death. And I think about that just from my own family's perspective. But all of us, even if you aren't and weren't at Camp Lejeune in that way, you may have a family member who was. You could be living in California right now and you've got a cousin who was in the Marines and they were in Camp Lejeune and they need to know about this. So any of your viewers, military or not, need to recognize the fact that our job is to educate, our job is to provide information and to let people know that they have a right and have remedies here that can help them.
And I want to say this again to our veterans out there, that Marines come to Fort Benning for parachute training, different types of training that we hold here at Fort Benning. So there's nothing to say that if while they was here, they met a young lady, they married her, and just like Agent Orange, they passed that on to her, and they took her back to Camp Lejeune. So you have two ways of getting compensation here, and I advise you to use both of them. Utilize the VA for your military claim for your pension, and utilize the Finley firm for your claim because it took so long to get it. So it's two sides to go.
Yes, sir.
What would you like to say?
Well, I would just say, to kind of touch on this, one thing that's unique about our law firm is we are 10 miles from the gates of Fort Benning. We represented hundreds and continuously still represent hundreds of individuals in the 3M dual-ended combat arm earplug litigation. And we are uniquely positioned to handle these types of claims due to the fact that we have experience dealing with the VA, getting medical records. But the most unique thing I think about it is we understand what it's like to come from a military hometown. We're local, we'll help you, where you're going to see a lot of ads over the next coming weeks. But there's something different about people right here in the Chattahoochee Valley, and we're some of those people, and the attorneys at the Finley firm are glad to help in any way that we can.
And I'm glad you just said what you said, because people see commercials on television and they don't really understand that they have someone here locally that can help them, especially with the earplug situation.
Absolutely.
And Leroy, that's a great point, just to touch on what you and Nick were saying. When you see a 1-800 number, an ad for a lawyer in Chicago that you'll never meet and you'll never talk to and never see face to face, there's obviously a difference between that, coming into our office, sitting down with us, letting us protect you and your family in that way. And, our lawyers, I'm not bragging on us a lot, but I can tell you, our lawyers are some of the best and brightest in the country, in my opinion, in terms of where they went to law school, their prior practices, and how well they did. So we have a certain, in our view, level of sophistication to handle these kinds of cases, but we just fortunately have to be local. And we've got guys that not only, and gals who are, not just our firm is local, we're local. I mean,
We like to
I
say
grew up here.
local lawyers, national talent.
That's right.
That's
That's right. And Nick is as good an example as anybody. Obviously, growing up, his parents are from here. His father, his grandfather was the iconic Nathan Rustin that everybody in Phoenix City always knew and loved, but also his parents. But also, he's a product of the school system here, all the way kindergarten through Central High School, and did, was on top of his law school class. So we feel good about it, helping people, but we also want to make sure that everybody understands there is a time limit, and there will be a time where you can't bring this claim, and it'd be a shame to just fail to do that because you didn't have the information.
Right. Well, tell us a little bit more about the firm. How many attorneys you have, and so the people know that when they come there, they just won't be sitting and waiting forever. But they'll get some service right away.
Right.
So tell us something about your number of attorneys, and not the number. You can give us a ballpark figure, but just tell us a little more about the firm.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate that opportunity, Leroy. We have 9 attorneys. We have 4 in Atlanta, and we have 5 in Columbus. Most all of us are licensed to practice in Georgia and Alabama.
Right.
Most of us went to school in or around here or from here. One of my high school classmates practices with us, Kirk Reed, who grew up here, and his family was, longtime Phoenix City, longtime Russell County. Nick and I obviously are here. Travis Hargrove is at our firm. Travis was 4th in his law school class, started out in Atlanta, but he went to high school here. His family is involved in Tires First. His brother, Wes, who went to Glenwood, but Travis went, high school here as well. Many of us, Nick, Travis, me, Amy Doherty, all went to Auburn undergrad.
Right.
So we're educated here, we're from here, but we all were at the top of our law school class. Or all were in certain leadership positions. I was president of my law school class. I was on the ABA National Moot Court team. We competed at the highest level, won the Southeastern region, competed nationally in Chicago when I was in law school. That's just me, but I could talk about each lawyer kind of in that space.
Right.
But the beautiful thing we feel like for us is the fact, while we've got the Atlanta office and all of the reach there, we're hometown, we're local, we're raised here, and we can sort of bring that larger city sophistication in our view and really provide this community with some, in our view, extraordinary and exceptional lawyers who can compete and have at the highest level.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad you let the veterans know and the civilians and everyone that you're licensed in both states.
Yes, sir.
And that you can serve them in both
Absolutely.
states, and they don't have to feel that, I live in Phoenix City, but their office is in Columbus. So they serve both states. In closing, Nick, what would you like to tell us in closing?
I would just like to say that, this is a really important piece of legislation that was passed by Congress and signed by the President on August 10th, which is an important date because it triggers the statute of limitations or the deadline to file a claim. So the deadline will be August 10th of 2024. We have 2 years. And so anyone watching this needs to be aware of that. You can give us a call at 706-322-6226 or go to our website, www.thefinleyfirm.com. We're active on Facebook here in town. You can just search The Finley Firm on Facebook and we'll come up. But if you want to reach out to us, we will help take care of you. And I always say, any type of matter that you have, you can always call us. And even if we don't handle it, we'll put you in the hands of someone that can.
Well, Nick, you just took the words out of my mouth because I was going to ask Ben to give us the website so we can run across the bottom of our screen.
Well, I would probably be the better one to ask.
So that is great. And now you've heard where you can go, and there's a lot of veterans here in the Chattahoochee Valley area that are worrying about claims for their water involvement with Camp Lejeune. Now you know where to go to get that service that you need. So you're talking about your spouses need to file a claim. They can go to the Finley Firm. You need to file a claim. You can go to the Finley Firm, but you still need to file a claim with the VA as well. So there you have it from Ben and Nick, the Finley Firm, talking about Camp Lejeune and the water crisis and the bill that just got signed by President Joe Biden. We'll see you next time on the Veterans View Show.